Hey, I'm Webb Bostic, president of Wonder Cave, and in these candid conversations, we chat with clients, partners, industry leaders, and peers on topics that strive to find the intersection of political advocacy work as well as mobile communication and digital. And today's conversation is no different. It's actually quite a significant topic, and that is data and the role that it plays kind of in the political space, the significance that it has when the quality is either good or bad. How do I get it? Who do I work with to get it? What data matters? All of these questions that I'm excited to dig into with our esteemed guest, Paul Westcott. Paul, president of L2 Data. Glad you're here with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Webb. This is great.
Paul is, I'm gonna use my notes here,
Absolutely.
cheat sheet. First off, Paul is, he knows everyone in this space, which is a great thing. Yeah. And just recently promoted to president at the beginning of this year. So that is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But for those who do not know L2, so L2 is a national voter, consumer, and automotive data provider. For 50 years, L2 has set the standard for data processing, quality, and visualization through L2 voter mapping, consumer mapping, and auto mapping. L2's data can be your core file for analysis, research, or direct voter or consumer contact. Does that work?
It's pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it.
No, that's awesome. So, yeah, thanks again for coming, dealing with a 24-hour downpour in Charlotte. And so, yeah, Paul, your background, you've been at L2 just about a dozen years. And before that, though, I guess I'd like to dig in there for fun. A dozen years before that, you've actually come up through like the media side of things.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear just your story there to start off as an icebreaker and how it led you to L2.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off in media. I went to Fordham University in New York City, and so there's a lot of media internships and things you can do. And I started off by interning for Fox News Channel, which was Bill O'Reilly, the O'Reilly Factor, and that was really interesting working for Bill. And happy to go down that rabbit hole as much as I'm allowed to. But that was. He was an interesting first boss to have. It was him, and then my direct report was Jesse Waters. So, famous faces now, but back then he was just a production manager, which was really cool. And then I went across the street to 30 Rock, where I worked for NBC News, and I was an assignment editor there, which is still a relatively intro position, sort of managing where reporters go, where trucks are, where all the logistics of news coverage comes from for the Today Show and for nightly news and at the time MSNBC and all of that. Then I went over to Clear Channel, working for what is now iHeart Media, and I still wasn't really in a political role at that point or even a sales role. I was in on the media side. I was the national news director for Clear Channel, where I would update all their websites. Clear Channel at the time had around 850 stations. I'd update those sites and put those out, put a lot of information out there. At the time, they were launching iHeart Radio, which was or iHeart Media or whatever they were calling it at the time, the app on BlackBerry. I mean,
Nice.
let's just think about that. We made the choice, visionary, to go on BlackBerry before iPhone.
Yeah.
This was a long time ago, so and it made sense at that moment because of the market penetration. So we did that, and I started a show called The White House Brief, which was just a 10-minute kind of thing. They wanted to draft off the popularity of Obama. This was like 08. And they said, the Clear Channel thought, oh, hey, we've got this whole portfolio of Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Hannity, these conservative talkers. Let's have something down the middle of the road that just covers the White House and really covers the fun stuff, the Obama dog and the kids and all that stuff. So that's kind of how I started. Then I took a shift and said, well, I want to be on the air for real. Went up to Manchester, New Hampshire, and was a radio host there, and then Worcester, Mass, and coastal Maine. So doing the morning show, a combination of interviewing presidential candidates in the New Hampshire primary and the biggest pumpkin at the fair. So
significant news. Yeah.
Significant
you gotta cover
news.
That. Yeah.
And I stayed on as the national news director, so I'd go back and forth between my sort of New York life and then my quiet New England town radio host life, which was kind of fun. So.
Did you did folks begin to recognize you over time, like in New England?
So Clear Channel has a significant billboard outdoor presence as well. So I was on a few billboards, and they
Oh, I love
are
that.
horrible and hilarious, and my kids mock them to this day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yes, so I
You
did
still have
get
documentation of
recognized.
it?
I do.
Okay, good.
I do.
One in your house?
Maybe
Yeah.
I'll show you later. Yeah, exactly. I have some of the signs. It was really funny. But it was like Beck, Hannity, Limbaugh, Westcott, and it had the thing. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So
Like Rushmore of conservative radio.
yeah, and then me. Yeah.
But clearly a definite interest in politics
Oh yeah.
the whole way through. I mean, that's what drove you to kind of like that career path. Is, you're talking about it, you're clearly interested in it. So that jump from, radio host to data. Take us through that.
It's weird, right? So I went to graduate school with a guy named Shane DeApril. We actually went to college together as well. Shane is the owner of Campaigns and Elections magazine, formerly magazine, Campaigns and Elections. And so I've known him for over 20 years now, and we were college roommates, actually, just randomly put together.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
so small world. He
I
introduced
didn't
me.
realize he went north.
He did,
college,
exactly.
okay.
Yes. So he and I were both at Fordham together, and then we went political science, undergrad political science, grad school, which was a focus in campaigns and elections.
Mm-hmm.
So we were both obviously very interested in that. And he introduced me to, at the time, Tracy Dietz, who's now CEO of Donor Bureau. She was running L2,
Okay.
and basically they brought me over to run marketing and sales and things like that. And here I am 12 years later having done it. I started just doing sort of freelancing and kind of helping them. They really wanted to get in with, L2 really wanted to get in with media outlets.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done that now successfully. Ironically, the last one to fall was NBC. That happened like 2 years ago. The first one was the New York Times, and that kind of got us across the board with a bunch of others. So, yeah.
Shout out to Tracy. We love Tracy.
Yes.
Everyone does.
Absolutely.
So, very cool. Yeah. It's funny how that
small world. It's all connections in politics. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. So L2's been around for 50 years or more.
Over 50.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier, L2 got its start in politics. Mm-hmm. You have expanded that since over the years. But your kind of bread and butter, or at least like historically, it's the political space. So if you don't mind taking a couple minutes just talking about kind of the clients you serve, or kind of the typical workflows that you guys support, and how folks are using your data or using your services, just a snapshot of that in 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different use cases for the data, obviously. And I always joke with people make data out to be this big, complicated beast, when reality is a lot of the time it's name, address, and then a bunch of other stuff, which is essentially what we license, what we sell. And we do campaigns direct. Obviously, that's a big piece. I need a walk list. I need a list for texting. I need a list for call time. I need a list for direct mail. All of that are digital. That's all very straightforward, probably the most straightforward approach of what we do. Then there's the consultants that are doing it for many campaigns. Then there's the, if it's an advocacy organization or a PAC or something larger that's saying, well, we're going to do this over multiple states, then they require different ways to interact with the data, which are complicated. The data stays simple, but then you have these different levels of interaction. Oh, I need a cloud-based service, like a Snowflake type thing, which we can talk about. But or maybe they just want to use data mapping and pull down lists, or maybe they just want us to deliver a file to them, and then they've created their own infrastructure. And what's been so interesting over time is watching the technology change, and to see how people have become more sophisticated as technology's gotten better. The ability to ingest and work with more data has gotten easier, which is good for us. It's good for our business, but it's really good for, I think, everybody out there working with a campaign or an organization, because from when I started in 2014, you had to almost introduce people to, what am I using this for? Why do you have this mapping tool? Why do you have this? Why do you have that? To now, it's like understood as part of the ecosystem. I need all this.
Yeah.
Now, who am I going to go get it from? And that's kind of what we've tried to develop at L2. So it is campaigns, it's consultants. A lot of pollsters and researchers utilize us, both public and private. We work directly with other vendors in the space who want to, and that's been very popular the last 2 years, where they're onboarding full files, either for early return data or some kind of other data to have in-house, where they don't have to come buying it each time. And then there are a big and very growing market for us is Capitol Hill as well as state legislatures. So anybody doing direct constituent contact has been a huge piece of us. We work with a few different vendors on Capitol Hill and at the state legislative level, and they come to us and they basically license the data. And lawmakers, we strip out party, we strip out FEC donor information and state level donor information, and then we give them this kind of cleaned up voter file that they use to contact for 499s or other constituent contact.
Why is that growing? Like, why is that in particular? You called it out, like this is a growing kind of sector or use case for you guys.
Well, I mean, we all know in the campaign space, we're not always the first ones, and I'll say we're not the first ones to adopt new technology and new things. Well, government's even slower. But now
you don't say.
I know, shocking. They're finally coming around to the fact that they're like, now we need a CRM. Now we need to manage these interactions. Now we need to,
like
now we
innovation
need
has to
data.
be there too.
Yeah, exactly. We need to reach people, and they finally started texting. So like that's finally come around, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's almost like campaigning, but from office. And then you just realize you take down this veil and it's like, it's all marketing. It's all speaking to people. It's constituent. It's contacting people. And so what do you need to contact people? You need tools and you need data. And they've now figured out, I can pair all this stuff together and I can use office funds or state funds or whatever it might be to be able to do that kind of contact. And at the most simple level, it's direct mail pieces that says, hey, I'm your member. Here's what I've been working on, to complicated digital campaigns or texting campaigns.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good quote. Like it is all marketing. Like it's all
marketing.
You're communicating to an audience, and the point is you're not yelling into the void. Like there is engagement at the other end. And, whether or not you can call it campaigning, you're, particularly if you're in the House, you're always campaigning. And so it's like, how are you engaging ultimately the folks that are going to be going to the polls to keep you there or not? Whether or not you can, again, call it that, and the entity that's reaching out is to be campaigning or not. But you're still stating your case of, hey, I'm your representative or what have you. So that's really good. So, again, been at L2 for a dozen years, and I imagine, being that a few cycles in, you've seen like rapid change.
Yeah.
What do you see as kind of the biggest hurdles when you see clients come in, or you're kind of just out there, tip of the spear, selling L2 and serving your client base? Currently, like biggest challenges.
The biggest challenges from the clients?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the biggest thing is obviously anytime, again, same challenge with marketing, right, is reaching people where they are. How do I do that? How do I most effectively do that? Oh, great. L2 has, we have a big collection of landline numbers. What does that mean anymore? They're barely reachable, but some people still utilize them, and they're still there, and there's still tens of millions of them. And so you're just like, okay, I've got this good data, I've got this thing, but now how do I actually activate on it? How do I use it? And what is the best way to get there? And I always talk about L2 like we're like kind of a hub, right? And then everything that we work with comes off that hub of the underlying data, which is, I need to reach people via direct mail. So we've got the direct mailing address. We're keeping it up to date. We're doing all these things for it. Okay, now mail's not working as much. Now I need to, go to phones. Now I need to go to texting. Now I need to go to digital, or whatever the case might be, or some mix, which is usually what it is. And then finding the layers of people who are going to work best depending on the medium. So maybe you can we work with a ton of researchers, and they see this more than anyone. they're saying, I can't get enough responses quickly enough.
Mhm.
So how do I do that? Well, I need for 18 to 35-year-olds text messaging. That number's getting higher, by the way.
Yeah.
As a 40-year-old, I can say, it's like
Mhm.
40 plus. Text messaging is still going to be the best way to reach somebody. Over a certain age, you say maybe email. Over an age over the that, maybe that's direct mail, maybe that's a phone call. So basically figuring out what the mode is and then what kind of targeting are you going to be able to do, and where you can kind of legally and broadly reach a representative group of people. Whereas in the old days when Gallup was in its heyday in the 80s and 70s, when they could just call a bunch of landlines, random digit dialing, and get enough responses in a half hour after the State of the Union, you can do it. Now you got to figure out lots of creative ways to be able to reach people. You've got all the data in the world, but it doesn't matter if you can't connect that to the person. So I say that's probably the biggest overarching challenge.
Yeah, the Gallup example, used to, phone call comes in to the landline, which is like the only option, and it's like that call's getting picked up, like the connect rate. I'd love to look more into that, but I would assume is very high and a couple generations past.
Yeah.
Today there's so many avenues to target. You could maybe say like, oh, I'm getting this many, kind of impression points or whatever, but it's like, is anything landing? And particularly, being in the text messaging lane, that is certainly always a topic of like, how saturated is this continuing to get? So focusing in on texting, what does L2 help its clients to do to like overcome that?
Yeah.
Hey, sure, I can pull, a broader kind of representative audience, but kind of almost like confidence levels of, hey, this is going to help us get a better engagement success rate or what have you.
Well, I love texting, first of all. I'm not just saying that. I'm really not just saying that. It was late 2015, and our CEO came to me, and he's like, I'm going to spend $1 gazillion on cell phones because everyone's going to start texting. This was 2015, and he was right. And we did that, and I was nervous. It was a slow year. 2015 was a slow year, no matter how you sliced it. We didn't have this kind of the amount of money in the political system now is 10x whatever it was back then. So you just have more of an ability to operate in odd years. So he said, we're going to buy all these cell phones. And then texting exploded. And so he kind of caught it had already been going, but it really exploded.
Well, because that's what, 5 or 6 years after the iPhone.
Right.
And then really about when like texting in mass became more like democratized to like more like software based.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it made it gave people an opportunity to say, oh, well, this is a good medium more than just one at a time. Yeah, the software started, and then there was a couple of companies that kind of popped up in the political space in particular, and we were like, great, this is fantastic. So then the challenges come, right? So there's saturation point, but you need targeting, which is the biggest thing in our minds. Having a targeted audience basically helps you avoid waste, helps you avoid lawsuits, helps you avoid embarrassment, potentially negative attention that you don't want to get. Targeting can basically shed a lot of the risk that you're taking. Even if you have an unlimited budget, forget about waste in terms of money for a second. Even if you have that unlimited budget, you don't want to deal with hitting the wrong people. It could go the other way. So that gives you the ability to kind of shed the people who you don't want to reach out to. So I think that's the number one thing we do. Number two is hygiene, cleaning up. For texting, we buy, license what we call exhaust data. This is like the data disconnects, failed contacts. Anytime a telephone company says this is a bad number, we go, okay, that's a bad number. We mark it and remove it from our file. As far as I know, we're still the only photo file vendor that does this, where we pay for bad data, essentially
Yeah.
to buy that back. And we have it's about 225 million records now of bad numbers. It has a last name and a phone number, and we basically remove that from the system. And then we have to go out and buy new numbers to update that. And that's the third thing, which is just constantly buying newly connected numbers. We work with a lot of big partners for that. And I mean, you probably know a lot of the names, but they are the biggest ones in the space that are constantly getting those newly connected numbers. And then the next layer up from that is basically saying, how do you individualize it? Because cell phones are sometimes a family thing where you have family plans, you have everybody's under a single number. Well, we work with different systems that disaggregate those. So it'll take if it's under mom and the rest of the family is all under that same number, and 4 people in one family have the same number associated with them, well, we'll be able to figure out who head of household is and remove those other people and then try to find numbers for them. So
that is a great look under the hood of just everything that goes into just how you're presenting data. If I just go onto your platform and begin looking for phone numbers, it reminds me of, folks are like, well, you just text, you just send a text. I'm like, what? There is a journey there. There's a lot that goes into it.
A lot that goes into it.
And that's fine. That's our job, our
Of
jobs
course.
respectively to make it simple for our clients. But there is an appreciation there's a lot that goes into, because to your point, doing it right means either, like you said, you're minimizing risk, you're boosting performance, just all the things, your dollars going further. I'm curious because, the ever-changing, just cycle over cycle nature of politics. What does that look like? Or, when you're working with clients who are like, okay, we kind of saw this a couple years ago. I'm sure there are times when maybe there's the propensity to say that worked then, it should work now, but likely that's never true. Do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, in politics, we go through a cycle, as we've all kind of discussed over the last few months after last year plus after the 24 cycle, and we reevaluate what happened. Let's change, and then we go back to sort of old ways, right?
Yeah.
So there is a cycle over cycle evaluation, but I think what happens is one of two things. I think really good. And we work with a lot of really, really good practitioners. And what they do is they look for the newest technology, they evaluate, they ask all the good questions, some of the bad questions, doesn't matter. They're asking questions. They're trying to find what is the best thing. What are marketers doing? What are people at the upper echelons? What are they doing at, WPP and, some of the other Stagwell organizations? Like, what are they doing at these, elite organizations to do marketing, and how do I do that? And that's what we love, because that's kind of where we try to operate. What ends up happening a lot of the time, though, is campaigns are unique in that you have to flood the zone right at the end, right? So whenever early voting starts before a general or primary, so starting, let's say, August, September of this year, we're going to say people just kind of throw the rule book out the door, and they say, let's hit everybody. We got to get everybody. It's just got to get out the vote,
Because we can't say we didn't at the end.
Exactly.
Is that one reason? Or we've raised this much money.
You got to spend the money.
Yeah.
You got to get to zero at that point. And it's the only thing that really differentiates. Well, it's one of many things, but it's one of the biggest things that differentiates it from any other type of organization on earth is that it ends, and it has a purposeful ending. And so when you have that deadline, essentially you're just like, it's time to liquidate. It's time to get out there. And usually that's when a lot of money starts coming in too, especially in a tight race. So then all of a sudden they're trying to figure out how do I spend all this money, which is, and I've seen that a lot more. That used to be a lot more purposeful back in 2014, 2015, 2016. Now it's just like whatever I can get, whatever inventory is available. How many texts can I send that'll land before election day? Because back in those early days, I used to get texts 10 days after the election, for the election. I don't see that as much anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that's if that happens, that means we really have overloaded things.
Yeah.
But no, going back to kind of like the curiosity around learnings that are outside of maybe like the small corner of the political universe. Is that true for you have your consumer and even like auto business lines at L2. I mean, are you learning things from kind of that business that helps inform even back to political?
Yeah, absolutely. I think how a lot of these organizations are using data, how they're targeting, some of the methods that they're using when they license the file, because a lot of what we do is removed from the end product, right? We're building essentially a foundational element of a lot of campaigns, which is, these are the names, addresses, and phone numbers of every person who you want to contact. Okay, now what? And so watching consumer organizations, basically their brains are not wired to be that 9-month span. Their brains are to be quarter over quarter, or in the case of automotive, month over month. Basically, I'll deal with a dealer group in Chicago or something, and they'll be like, sales are down March over February. What's going on?
Yeah.
I think we're going to cancel our data contract. Okay, calm down. We'll find you more names. We'll do something better. We'll tweak this. We'll do that. And that's their brain. That's how they operate.
Yeah.
And that urgency and that kind of immediate demand for results in cycle, because they're operating like the rest of us. They look at quarters, they look at the year, but they're like month over month. That is the calendar. Yeah. And so that kind of aggressiveness, I'm like, I like that. I wish campaigns did a little bit more of that and kind of did that sort of an immediate analysis.
It forces that diligence and
like this isn't working. And in the age of early return data, like we can tell, you can see what's working and what's not. You're getting this immediate in 45 states. You're getting an immediate gratification of, hey, our program's working and we have time to change it mid-cycle if you really need to.
Is that what your like pollster survey clients are like? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where we can help.
Exactly. Because then they can come in and then they can do it. And through better technology, paired with these, forward-thinking kind of researchers or consultants, they can basically go out and they can kind of change the game part of the way through and say, yeah, this isn't working. We're not turning out the people we want. And they know the margins that they have to have in certain states where you have big Democrat or big Republican populations. And then they go, no, we gotta drive the other side. So.
Gotcha. So again, thank you for saying you love text.
I do.
So do we. But at the same time, there is certainly there are ways to do it well and ways to do it poorly. From your standpoint, where have you seen that done well? And like you mentioned, you love it because clearly you see the value in it. As from our perspective as a platform to be able to kind of like reach these audiences, you're helping to like develop those audiences and use that as part of the data set. So your affinity with it from your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, and I say I like texting, you've gone to campaigns and elections and APC events and all these technology campaign tech events. And you're just like, you meet every 2 years or every year, really, there's new technology. They're there for a year and then they disappear. These companies that come up and then they go nowhere. And then they either misjudge the opportunity or the technology changes or something like that. Texting for me has always been, because it's so pure and simple in the sense that it is right in your hand. You can see it immediately. From where I sit on the data side, we can provide that. That's easy for us. We can get somebody's phone number. We just have to keep it clean, all the under the hood stuff that I mentioned. And what I've seen people do right is, again, using all everything that we kind of give them to be able to do it. Make sure you're removing people who've already voted, using the early voting. Use targeting. Make sure you're targeting, doing creative properly, like text matters.
When you say targeting, real quick, can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Targeting, meaning you want to make sure there's a few different types of targeting. Obviously, there's, R versus D or independents or nonpartisans or whatever your modeling that you might have around your race might be. And there's the complexity of targeting that exists out there is to the point that we were building an audience and it was somebody, I'm building a nationwide audience. I want this nationwide audience. I'm not kidding you. By the end, it was 17 voters. So we went from 218 million to 17. And I'm like, you have targeted this to death because there's just not enough people in the specific audience that this person wanted. And so you basically say, you don't want to over-target. Over-targeting is bad, but targeting just the right way where you're trying to find a balance between keeping your scale, making sure you're talking to enough people to make it effective, while also eliminating the people who could do you harm, and then keeping in and really just trying to maximize whatever that audience is based on either your budget or hopefully what you can do, basically what you need it to do. So if you're in a congressional where you know that there's 100,000 people are going to vote in a primary, okay, that's my audience. So now from there, who are the people who are going to most be, whatever your messaging is, fundraising, turnout, whatever it might be, who are those people going to be? And really just walking it backwards and taking the time to make the counts, pull the counts, do all that, do testing, all that stuff. And that's not our side of the shop. That's your side, like the testing and the technology and making sure everything's like you're getting the sort of responsiveness that you want. From our end, it's really just about we don't want you to fail. We want you to succeed. So that's finding people who have found that balance between scale and appropriate targeting, finding the right groups of people are the winners. Those.
How many layers of targeting did that particular client
we
go
hit?
through?
So our system caps at 50 selections. So that's when the system goes, you have to save this, and then you can create more, and you have to join them at some point. We were at 38.
Okay.
So 38 selections on a national map, 218 million voters, and some of them were down to, it was a candidate of, I can't give away too much, but a candidate of a very specific ethnicity, and he really wanted to find this group. So that immediately made it really small because we have individual ethnic coding. So you have like East and South Asian, big group, and then like Indian, smaller group, Japanese, smaller group, things like that. And you can have different subgroups. So we had that. And then from there, it was super high vote performance, like 4 out of 4 primary voters. You had super high needed cell phone. Okay, so that's fine. Good coverage there. But you also they wanted hobbies and interest around shooting, or they wanted something. It was just a lot of different things. And all of a sudden,
And to your credit, you have all these things
we
available.
have it all, which is cool. That's
like,
great,
oh,
that we can do
yeah.
it. And the guy was like a kid in a candy store, and I loved it because he was so excited about all the different, elements we could incorporate into it.
And then it's like 17.
And it's like 17 people. And me, and listen, I'll do counts for anybody. I don't care. I love it. But I'm like, I'm the president of L2, and you've got me. It's a national file. Well, 17 people. Do you want to buy this? Our minimum's $450, so we can get that for you. He ended up building the audience. I think we're, I'd have to check my email, but he's probably at $500,000 now, which is a lot more reasonable. That's
because, like you said, it back up, give yourself the ability to test, iterate, narrow further if you need to from there. But that was going to be a question I asked. Is like, what was your most ambitious request from a client? And I think you walked right in on that one. With that example.
That's like the last 2 days. So that one is
nice.
That one's happening. Yeah.
Well, again, I think to their credit, testament to the interface, the available fields. Yeah. They just had a little too much fun with it for a second there. So.
They did. I think he's like, oh, and you guys have that. You have this. You have this. And it's like, yeah, we have it, but you don't have to use it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of, so, from Wonder Cave's standpoint, this is all really interesting just in general for me because kind of where we stand is more on the, our clients typically are agencies, consultancies, maybe even kind of work with the data themselves, probably partner with L2. And, the onus and the responsibility of the data that ultimately comes to the system is theirs. Our responsibility is that the data they bring in, we're going to be able to execute against that and deploy it downstream as fast as possible. Do all of the things on almost like the telecom side of the world, and work through that black box and give them a great experience on the text channel, and then the data that comes back from it. So delivery, reply, opt out, things like that. But it's that before it gets to a side of things that's really interesting for me to unpack with you. We're working together on what's going to be a really neat integration. Yep. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on just that kind of that linkage between building these audiences, 17 or more people, and being able to quickly do something about it. And in this case, say, hey, this audience that I've built, let's deploy over text. Because in politics, like you said, I mean, it's unique in that it is so fast paced, even in a particular project. So would love your thoughts on that. Just the fast paced movement of, hey, we've got a project, we've got an audience to build, and we need to execute on this.
Yeah. Well, I think, we have been on an integrations tear, and you all are our first texting integration. I'm very excited about that because, as I said, it's clean. It just works with our users, and we're working with the biggest pollsters in the space. I used to say some of. We are now working with the biggest ones. SSRS and the Associated Press use L2 data to build out their modeling for election day. So like that's what they're doing. And they do tons of responses. They're collecting data from all these different sources, and they're building it on top of the L2 voter file to learn things in real time.
Mm-hmm.
The only way you can do that and scale that is by having a combination of good data, but good technology to be able to do it, because exit polls can't just be exit polls anymore. You can't just do it by standing outside with a little clipboard. You need to be able to do texting. You need to be able to find other modes of that, and you have to do it quickly, and it has to scale really quickly.
Yep.
I would say our demand for campaigns and consultants and PACs is huge, and that is where they see big sends, big large scale fundraising programs, persuasion and get out the vote programs. But researchers have been the ones that have had these high demand projects where they need to turn something around quickly, scale it up really quickly, and where texting has been sometimes the only way to get the responsiveness that they want. Live calls are great if you can get them to go through, get people to pick up, get around the barriers that have been put in place there. Texting it's becoming almost universal in a sense that you can get the number of completes you want in that quick amount of time. So when you think of campaigning, everybody thinks of get out the vote before election day. It's no longer just that. It's the researchers, it's the PACs, it's the persuasion campaigns 2 months before, it's the fundraising campaigns 10 months before. All of that is needed, and every one of those has to find its moment, right?
Yeah.
You need to, especially fundraising has moments where, Trump says something at the State of the Union, left or right. You might want to respond to that. The smart campaigns were set. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
The ones who have good technology and good data are able to do that immediately when they see their opportunity and jump on it. So,
gotcha. No, well, share in the excitement in this integration. It's going to be really.
It's going to be awesome.
We're gonna be really keen to see how this plays out and get some of our kind of trusted clients to try it out first.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it, just to kind of speak to it further, it just plays to strength. So it's plays to the strength of the interface to build the audience. And then I think for us, we just see that opportunity of like reducing friction. To your point, speed matters. So we'll be excited to talk more about it. We've got a couple big conferences coming up. But this has been a lot of fun. Anything else you want to leave with before we wrap up here?
No, and we're very excited. I'll speak quickly to the mechanics of the integration, though, really quick.
Sounds great.
On that sense. The mechanics of it are you're going to be able to go in, build your audience, build a universe, and then basically be able to send that universe just like you'd be able to send from any other platform to another platform. It's a direct pipeline from L2 to Wonder Cave to make it so it's a simplistic, frictionless type of send. And the idea is ultimately, I'd love to be able to turn that data back around, not for everybody's, but for that individual user's use for responsiveness and things like that. That's stage 2. But stage 1 is basically so you don't have to download what we call ETL process. It's just no download upload process. This is just a direct send. So and it just appears in your account. I've seen the speed of it. I think it's going to make all the difference for a lot of people.
And I'll add to it because like we talked about at lunch, there's still an element of to the carrier's credit, they've created this registration framework that it's certainly nowhere perfect, but it does make it pretty binary. Like you got to be registered to pass muster when you send a campaign out over text. To do that, you have to work with us. Like that's where we help to get you and potentially your client, if you're an agency or kind of working on behalf of a client, to get them registered. So we'll be sharing more information about how to make that like a seamless kind of build and execute. But it's just going to be kind of playing to strengths on both ends. So
Absolutely.
Really excited about it.
Yeah, same here.
Awesome. Well, before we get out of here, I'd love to just tee you up to tell folks who are tuning into this, listening in, who should reach out to you and how should they get in touch with you if they need these types of services.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, look, it's I like to say everybody, anybody who's sending mail, texts, phone calls, anybody doing any kind of voter contact, voter analytics, anything like that, we really run the gamut. We're very blessed, and the company's unique in that we're nonpartisan, first of all. Secondly, we have a product that essentially, if you go to a conference or a trade show or anything like that, we can work with every single person that's there. So really, if you are in the space and you say, I need this kind of targeting for whatever kind of outreach, we are going to be your person who can help you out with that. And that can be another technology, that could be a campaign direct, that can be a PAC, that can be, and it's all levels. I said $450 minimum. So that's basically, I say that like tongue in cheek, but literally we'll have small races that come and get a list from us. The company was Labels and List for a long time. And so you could do that, or you can buy a nationwide license for an analytics shop. So
Gotcha. And what's the best way to get in touch with you and your team?
If you just go to l2-data.com, and then from there if you go to the About Us page, you'll see my name, email, contact. That's my cell phone on there, so you can contact me that way. The other way is, and our whole team is on there, is just through that contact form on the website. Usually the fastest, that of the chat.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, Paul, thank you again. And we'd love for you to tune in to the next time we get together with either our clients, partners, or peers. And again, I'm president of Wonder Cave, Webb Bostic. Thanks for checking us out.